matter for Wisconsin Governor Scott Walker. The question now is, during his 2012 recall election, did Walker act so brazenly as to break campaign finance laws? That is exactly, in fact, what prosecutors allege. Those Wisconsin prosecutors say Walker was part of a, quote, criminal scheme to violate election laws. No charges have been filed against Walker, who is up for a second term this fall. Newly released court documents allege that Walker illegally coordinated fundraising activities with outside conservative groups, including Wisconsin Club for Growth and Karl Rove's Crossroads. Among the treasure trove of documents that just came out is an email from Walker to Karl Rove, where he mentions advisor R.J. Johnson's role in the coordination. It says, bottom line, RJ helps keep in place a team that's wildly successful in Wisconsin. We are running 9 recall elections, and it will be like running 9 congressional markets in every market in the state and Twin Cities. The irony of this whole thing is that a conservative group, Wisconsin Club for Growth, in essence caused these documents to become unsealed. They came out as part of a lawsuit by that group trying to hold off an investigation into campaign finance allegations. Whoops. Walker had this to say about the case.
I asked people to look at the facts. The facts are pretty clear. A judge at the state and the federal level made it clear that they didn't buy into this argument. They said to move on.
Scott Ross is executive director of One Wisconsin Now. It's a group that's fighting for economic equality there in Wisconsin. And Scott, you are there in Madison. Tell us, how's the story playing on the ground?
Well, Crystal, it is wall-to-wall news coverage here about what you said, a criminal scheme involving our governor, Scott Walker, related to illegal coordination, fundraising, and spending amongst a network, a nationwide network of right-wing organizations to specifically avoid campaign finance laws.
That's right.
And so it is playing all over the place, and Governor Walker is in full spin mode.
And obviously, Governor Walker, and the reason why this is such a big nationwide story is not just because of the drama around the recall elections there and his aggressive tactics against unions, among other things, but also because he's been talked about as a big 2016 contender, a sort of top-tier contender there. Is he going to be able to even get reelected in Wisconsin, given this news? The latest polls have him tied there with his Democratic opponent, Mary Burke.
Well, I'll tell you, it's twofold. First, I'd say, you know, when you have a media day where the better news would have been the other story out of Wisconsin, which is that new job numbers say Wisconsin is dead last in the Midwest, when that would be a better story for you, you're having a pretty bad media day. And second, you know, we always assumed that the reason that the right-wing organizations and Scott Walker during the recalls had $80 million to spend was simply because there was a lot of interest in Walker becoming a national figure. Well, it turns out the reason they were able to do that is because they are all working in cahoots in a potentially illegal criminal scheme to make sure that as much money came into the state as possible to help support Governor Walker.
That's right. And how is Governor Walker viewed outside of these investigations? You mentioned the fact that new report out, Wisconsin 37th nationwide in job creation. That's obviously not a great result there. Were people already having doubts about him, or is the electorate there so polarized that there are essentially no undecided voters? Folks are already in either camp.
Well, I think there's probably a small segment of undecided voters. You know, the people of Wisconsin have had to endure Governor Walker's corruption, cronyism, and incompetence for the last 4 years, and this may be the straw that broke the camel's back. I mean, when you have a Republican prosecutor saying that your governor is involved in a, quote, criminal scheme, that's pretty damning. You know, and campaigns are campaigns, and we'll have to see what happens come November, but these are real bad signs for the governor. You know, he'd rather be talking, obviously, about other things, and he certainly has responded very quickly. Today, a $250,000 statewide negative media buy went up by the governor attacking his opponent, Democrat Mary Burke.
And we should just point out that charges have not been filed in this case. The legal status very much unclear right now, but the political damage, I think it's already clear that voters are responding to this. It's in the news. On the flip side, though, Democratic candidate Mary Burke, she's been sort of moderate in her tone. She hasn't taken a strong stance in terms of the actions that Governor Walker took on collective bargaining with unions there in Wisconsin, which were essentially what led to the recall election. Is she generating enough excitement in the Democratic base to be a real contender in November?
Well, from what I hear, it sounds like, her focus on education, on job creation, on her private sector experience, and certainly being the first candidate in the nation to come out as a governor in favor of refinancing student loans, I think are all good signs for Mary Burke if she wants to become governor of the state of Wisconsin, because those are the things that people tend to focus on in elections, education and job creation, that sort of thing. I think that the question is, for Governor Walker, has he answered everything that needs to be answered regarding this investigation? But has he also answered one, I think, very important question: is this still going on? And until he answers that question, I think people will still want to know why, has this scheme continued? And if it hasn't, well, is that an admission that you knew what was going on was wrong?
Yeah, well, it's a fascinating time, obviously. Scott Walker, not the first 2016 hopeful to be potentially taken down by allegations of wrongdoing. Scott Ross, thank you for helping us understand the story.